My name's Johnny. I'm alcoholic. And my sobriety date is August 20th of 1997. I have a sponsor. I sponsor others, and my home group is right down the street here. It's 2250. And if you're not sure if you want to get sober or not, you can probably hang out in one of these other groups here until you're ready, because we're pretty serious. It's a joke, but they're for real. It's serious business. If you show up there, you'll know they don't play around. But anyways, my big thing usually when I get up and speak, it's the hardest thing I have to do in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I cannot tell my story without visually going back to where I'm mentally where I was when I stopped drinking and ended drinking. And it's, I like laughing, I like having a good time, and there's funny parts of my sobriety, but it's sad. It's incredible, and it's sad how devastating, how a soul sickness can just take you there mentally. It's horrible. For example, my last drunk at my parents' house, they barricaded themselves in their own room. And it's sad. I can see my stepmother and my father putting their dresser in front of their door, and because if you're a mother or father, you know your kids. And they knew I needed some sleep. I was in some big trouble, and before that, I asked my dad if I could borrow his gun, which I knew he wasn't going to give it to me, but I was just basically asking for help because I was in a lot of trouble, and he wasn't going to give me the gun. That was my way of asking him that I needed help, that I was in some trouble. But anyways, there's some things I don't want to forget to say. Number one, this group is an amazing group. And I want to thank you guys for, I've spoken at several different places before and around this town, and to get up here and tell your story, it's a privilege. It's an exciting group, it's a big group, and you guys have done a fantastic job, and I'd like to thank you guys. Serious. I spoke when I was over here on Central and First, and Chuck was still alive, and I'm probably going to fall apart now, but Mike and I had the same sponsor. Lou passed away in March, I believe, and he sponsored me and Mike and Gene and Dave come out of that. And I shared at the funeral that what happened is when he passed away, we were all kids. I've been sober 16 years. Gene, 17 years. Mike, 15 years. And we were all kids when he sponsored us. And to watch each one of us turn into sober men is incredible. If you guys know Lou, he had a passion for hanging out with the young kids, and he was good at that. So, but anyways, I started drinking when I was about 13, maybe 14. What happened with me is I had just learned about weed, and I was smoking weed, I guess, with an older kid. And I lived in a trailer park, and one morning I went in my parents' closet for some reason. I looked around, and I seen by their shoes there were some marijuana buds. There were some buds there, and I'm like, oh, I'll pick out the carpet, whatever, and try to make it enough for a joint. And I started thinking to myself, and I was like, well, where did this come from? It just don't come out of the shoe. Well, where did it? So I looked up, and there was 2 suitcases on the top of the closet. And I took one suitcase down, and I popped on the bed, and I opened up, and there's 10 pounds. And I said, no way. And so I took the other suitcase down and opened it up and plopped it open. There was another 10 pounds. And for you guys that have been older, that's back when ounces were called lids, and there wasn't nothing but Colombian and Red Bud. And so I pinched out of about 5 pounds and refluffed them, and I got high that day. And what happened is, I met the older crowd that way, and I was able to meet the older crowd that way because I had, they loved it. I was just new at this stuff, and what I was drinking, I don't know why I say this. I used to say Miller Lite. I don't even think there was Miller Lite back then, but I drank Miller, I guess because that's what my little tummy could handle or whatever. I don't know, but and the older guys liked getting me drunk because I was funny, and it's really weird. From when I first drank, I used to drink just like kind of every other weekend or something like that, and up until I quit. 1997, my drinking kind of just always progressed. It just slowly always progressed until I was drinking in the morning, and I'd hit the brakes in the truck, and a warm beer would fall out underneath the front seat of the truck. I go, oh, whoa, check that out, and I'd open it up, and but So my alcoholism, it always slowly progressed. And, sometimes I sit up there and I hear stuff and nothing's really original. Some of the stuff I think's original, maybe not, but I've heard stuff in meetings that I really enjoy and I like to share. Number one, I flat love this country. I did my time. I'm a veteran of the Persian Gulf War, which you guys don't know, but that was only a 4-day war. They had enough of us after about 4 days. But I served my country because I love that country. And Alcoholics Anonymous is the greatest gift America has ever contributed to the world. And it started here. And that's something to be proud of. I mean, if you're an American, that's something to be proud of. Other countries are benefiting a lot. A drunk doesn't have to live like they used to live anymore. And another thing, too, is like the traditions years ago when this thing first started off, they was worried about their reputation. They was worried about what people were going to say about them. So what happened is alcoholic crackpots and all these other people and wayward women, we were not allowed in Alcoholics Anonymous because they didn't realize what kind of reputation they would have. But they didn't realize that when you sobered up one of us, what better of an example of Alcoholics Anonymous would that be to sober up us and to be an example out here? So they realized that to carry the message of what Alcoholics Anonymous was to sober up somebody, myself, homeless and living on the streets, and make them a productive member of society was no better example of how Alcoholics Anonymous works than that. If you're new out there, Herbert spoke last night, and he spoke about forgiveness. And it was a powerful message. He didn't have long to speak, and it was a powerful message. And what I'd like to talk to you about tonight, if you're in here and you're new, is just to have some hope and to believe that, number one, Alcoholics Anonymous works guaranteed. You don't have to, you can eliminate whether it does or it's been working for a long time. You have to decide whether you want to be a part of this or not. And it's just that simple. And two is I would like you to believe that, number one, I'm a bum. I'm a drunken bum from Sefner. I mean, that's all I am. I mean, I slept outside. It wasn't called camping. I've slept under interstates, and when you sleep under interstates, you roll around every once in a while so the ants don't bite you. I didn't take showers but about a couple days a week. It was horrible. I would come home drunk, and I'm like, I'll just take a shower in the morning. And what I did is I'm late for work. And I get to work, and that was like Groundhog Day. And what happened when you do that and you don't take showers, your bed is like sand. It's just, what you do is you kind of kick the covers into a corner to get under them, and it's like sand. And I wore socks where they were hot. I mean, if you've slept out in the streets, you know what I'm talking about. I've worn them where they're hot. They get hot. If you wear them for a long time and you're working, they get hot. And I'm just a bum from Sefner. And since I've gotten sober, actually it was kind of funny. Actually, I had asked my dad. I said, Dad, I was trying to ask him if I had always been like a pig, or kind of like a slob, and kind of like I didn't know how to say. I was like, Dad, have I always kind of been like? He goes, Yeah, son, you have. And if you can picture my stepmother's house, there's not one speck of dust anywhere. And I could see her face when I come in. I was like, oh, God, here we come. But anyways, my sobriety date is actually August 20th, 1997. But I had a little problem when I came in here because I still like to enjoy a little bit of marijuana or whatever, and I wasn't fitting in work, and I wasn't fitting in here, so I was smoking, and thank God I had a sponsor that made me change my sobriety date, because actually my first meeting was across from James Hanley Mental Hospital, and I go to the meeting, and if you're in here, you know, if you come in stoned, what you find yourself is you're right next to the cookies. And so for some reason, I had made my way over to the cookies. I don't know why, but I was chewing on as many as I could because I didn't know how long I was going to be in there. And they said, "Is anybody new?" I said, "Oh." Mm-hmm. And they waited and waited. I didn't know you had to say your name. And they waited, and they waited, and they waited, and they waited, and it felt like it was like a day or so, and because I didn't want all this attention on me. You know, I'm burnt, man. I'm good, and I got cooked. I'm good. You know, we're just here to get sober or whatever. You know, I didn't know what sobriety was, and all this attention was on me, and I didn't want that. Was the last thing I wanted. But anyways, thank God I had a sponsor and was able to let me know that I've been sober 16 years, and I've had nothing to affect me from the head up. I've taken nothing to alter on my mind. It was kind of exciting. Like I said, April 21st was actually the last time I drank. That was my last time I drank. I used to like to share this because I didn't really know how I was basically a liar. I didn't really know. I call it, kind of embellish the story, but no, I was just a liar. And I didn't know. I used to come in here, I used to share. I said, my last drunk, I was at a keg party. And after I'd been sober for a while, I had realized that there wasn't no keg there. It just sounded real good. And I shared that for a while. I was like, there wasn't no keg there. And then another one is, I remember I used to say, the favorite bumper sticker I ever seen was the best way to get on your feet is to get off your ass. And I'm like, I never even seen that bumper sticker. And I would just share that out. I've never seen it. A friend of mine's seen it, but I was like, oh, whatever. So, it was a while. It took me a long while to learn to not embellish. Embellish is just lying. And, I have one guy that wanted me to speak one time he's asked me a couple times. He always asks me to say this because he thinks it's funny, and it might be funny. But, I came home on a bad drunk, a weekend binge or whatever, and I came back to the little trailer, and I was eating bread and butter is what I was eating. That's all really I could afford. I was driving a BMW, which didn't have third gear because I burned it out. It didn't have a radio because Accept was in. As a matter of fact, I heard Accept on the TV last night. Accept Balls to the Wall was in the tape deck. It caught on fire. I took a big guzzle of my quart and spit it out and said, "I'm getting Alpine anyways. I don't need that radio." And that's what I was riding around in. It looked good, but I come back from weekend binge and eating bread and butter, and ants were from my front door, along my carpet, up the table leg, and on my plate with the butter and bread. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what am I going to do? And I smoked me a big fat doobie and got my Tallboy Budweiser, and I started thinking, I'm like, I can kill these ants, but I don't have a vacuum. I said, if I kill them, they're going to be all on my carpet. I don't know, So I said, I know what I'm going to do. So I grabbed the plate and I moved it down past the table leg, and down on the ground a little bit, and just went about my business, doing whatever I want to do. About an hour and a half, 2 hours later, all the ants were right there. So I was like, wow, that's pretty good. So I moved it again a little closer to the door, and I started this about 10 o'clock when I woke up. Right before it got dark, I had slowly moved that plate all the way outside my door, and the ants were all on that plate. And it was getting dark by then. It took me like 8 or 10 hours to do it, about 8 hours. And I just went about my business, didn't pay attention to it. But when they all got outside the door, I sprayed them ants with Raid and killed them all. And I looked at I said, Johnny, you're a genius. And I was serious. There was nobody there to laugh with me. I was serious. I'm like, man, you're going to be somebody someday. And that's one of my favorite things too when you come in Alcoholics Anonymous, to talk about bankrupt idealists. And I just had all these ideas, and I realized how many of them were bad. And I had a sponsor, and I had actually my last drunk, April 21st, 1997. It sounds fun. It's just my last drunk. It's what happened. I got into what I call a little disagreement with somebody, which was a fight. And they had pulled my hair. I had a lot of hair, and that's before I had the mullet going on. That's before the movie Joe Dirt happened, and I was sporting it. And so I got in a little what I call a disagreement with somebody where he pulled my hair. So I shaved it bald. And April 21st in 1997, I wake up in the morning. I didn't know I was bald when I got up. I look in the mirror, and I'm going, oh shit. I go, look at you, man. I go, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, well, I better shave. So I shaved a little bit, and I nicked myself right here with a razor. And I said, F you, Johnny Webb. And I threw the razor in the sink, and I said, let's get it on. And I went work like I was some tough guy or something, And my life was horrible. I was fixing to get in a fight with some guy named Al. He was 6'3" and 245 pounds, and he was crazy, and he was going to kick my ass that day. We got in a little disagreement with somebody else, and it was a rough day. So I jumped out of. He already beat somebody. He beat some guy with a baseball. He had already put a guy in a coma before, and so I didn't want to have nothing to do with this guy. He was big, and so I jumped out of the work truck that day, and that was April 21st, 97, and I woke my little brother up for for junior high school that morning. My little brother Patrick was in bed, and I said, Mom, is Bubba supposed to be at school? And she said, yeah. I said, he's still sleeping. So I went and woke him up, and I think he was 13 then, and he hasn't seen me drink since that day. And he went on a partial golf scholarship to USF since then, and I've taken up golf in the past 5 years. So him and I golf together, and every once in a while I'll take somebody that's sponsored new, and I'll be golfing. He's 30 years old, and he crushes the ball. He like I said, he played for USF, so he flat out smacks the ball good. And every once in a while I'll be sponsoring someone. I'll take him out. I said, see that kid right there? I said, I woke him up. My last drunk, I woke him up for school when he was 13, and it's just amazing to be able to have the life I have today and not be bound by alcohol. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice where I went. Alcohol decided where I went, and it's just amazing. And like I said, I've been through the steps, and I've taken other men through the steps. And my sponsors, I've got a new sponsor now since Lou passed away, and it was kind of tough. I didn't know what to do, and I prayed about it. I prayed about it for about a week. I said, I'm not going to run. Matter of fact, Lou was sick, and I didn't want to get a sponsor when he was sick because I had enough respect for Lou that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait a while. I've been sober long enough to wait a little while, and I prayed on it for a while. And the sponsor I got now is amazing. Every sponsor I've ever had is absolutely amazing. And I heard something in the meeting early on, and I was like, somebody had shared, they said, you know how we got here, each one of us got here? He said, somebody in your family, somewhere down the line, had said a prayer for you while you were out drinking and doing drugs. That's how you got here. So I was all excited. I'm like, wow, check that out. Somebody had been praying for me. So, so I went to my dad. I said, Dad, hey, somebody in my family's been praying for me. He said, son, there's been congregations praying for you for years. And most of my family's from southern Alabama, and then my Uncle John had to show me the date he started. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But yeah, I still believe that today. I guarantee if you review your life and sit back and think about somebody in your family, I guarantee you had probably said a prayer for you, and that's why you're here. And that's just how powerful God is. I am amazed. I don't really like saying this, but I drank a lot. I've heard most of you guys' stories. I've heard a lot of stories. I drank a lot, and I have yet to crave alcohol, and that is amazing. I had a guy at the Turning Point. I was at a Turning Point meeting, and a guy asked me, "What do you do when the craving happens?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I haven't had one yet," and I turned him. I introduced him to somebody who had a craving. I just haven't experienced that yet. It doesn't make me unique or different. It just I know there's only one way that can happen. And I smoke cigarettes, and I hate to bring up that, but cigarettes aren't no joke. And I'm telling you right now, if I'm fixing to get in a fight with somebody, and I'm looking at them, I whip out a cigarette, I'm take one pull, I'm like, maybe I was kind of mean to him. That's serious. Alcohol never worked that quick. So, when I was newly sober, I came in here. I'm hyper now, but I'm telling you right now, I was a member of the St. Pete group, and nobody came up and asked me if I needed a sponsor. They left me alone. I was walking, I would be going like, and I didn't stay still, and I was all hyper, and they just left me alone. And so when I came in here, I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day, and I was dipping a can and a half of snuff a day. And when you're doing that, and this is what happened, when you're smoking almost 3 packs and a can and a half a dip, so if I'm not smoking, eating, dipping, or talking shit, my mouth never stopped. There wasn't no time for anything else. And so what happened is I quit. I said a prayer. I said a simple prayer for God. I said, God, I would like to be an example of how powerful prayer is. And I said a prayer about cigarette smoking. I was done. I never craved a cigarette. I was done. And it's just a powerful, if you're bound by that, and I don't have a choice. I ask God, give me an example of how powerful prayer is, and I'll transmit that. And so I don't have a choice, but every once in a while I need to say what God has done for me. And, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love the Big Book. I've always been amazed at the Big Book. I've been amazed on how the Big Book was written in order. Way back then, how it was written in that order. Like it starts off with a doctor's opinion, tells you what you have. Right away it goes Bill's story. Right off that, they get going. There's a solution. Right from the get-go, it said, let's get going. There's a solution for what you got, buddy. And right after that, they tell you more about what you have. Then after that, they break you down to a faith that's going to change your life. They get chapter to agnostic. Right after that, how it works, and then into action. Let's get going. How that was written in order back then has always amazed me. It's truly amazing how, and like the first guy they helped got sober. You know, and 6 and 7. 6 and 7 today are the most powerful steps I have to deal with. Those are the things that's going to cut me off. Those are the things that people talk about, the 10th step, and I got to do something way before that 10 steps are happening. Because then I'm sorry, and I won't do that again. I don't mean that don't get it no more. I need to review 6 and 7 and stay on 6 and 7 before that stuff happens. Because it's like some people talk about, they thought about a drink. Well, when you think about a drink, your problems happen way before that. If you're not happy or you're thinking about drink, you're doing something wrong. There's something you're not doing that you need to be doing. Because I'm telling you, God is powerful enough to allow you not to go through that. So you got to constantly review. I got to review my life. And 6 and 7 are just a paragraph in the big book. The most powerful steps they are, and they're one paragraph apiece. And it's amazing. I sit across from the 7th step prayer at 2250, and I've told my story, so I'm an old stoner. I'm like, oh, whatever. I barely graduated from school, so keeping it simple is right up my alley. And So I sit across from the 7th step prayer, and people like to make it complicated. What's 6 and 7? 6 is you're thinking about, you're fixing to, and 7 you did it or you want it. Look, I sit across from that 7th step prayer, and for the 7th step prayer, it doesn't even have the word shortcoming in it. The 7th step is humbly ask God to remove a shortcoming. If it would have been the 7th step prayer, they'd at least put the shortcoming in there. So I combine the two. I keep it simple. I'm like, look, it's real simple. The 7th step prayer is remove every character or defect which gets in my way of my usefulness. That way, if you don't see me and you don't see a godly person, it's a character defect. If you don't look at me and see a man of God, it's a character defect. It's just that simple. I need to walk around pretending that I'm the only big book somebody might see. And I need to lead by example. And I attend a church now. I attended church for the past 5 years. And our preacher says something real simple. And it has something to do with Alcoholics Anonymous too. You either work happy or you work somewhere else. Because people are watching you. You got every one of you guys in here, somebody's watching you. Somebody's drunk, somebody's high, and they're watching you. And they want to see that you're happy, number one, because they don't have a clue about what it takes to get sober. They're like, I'm not going to be miserable like that. So it's important that you be happy and be an example of Alcoholics Anonymous. It just is. It's a big deal. Laughter. That's the only thing I really related to when I first come in. People were laughing. I'm like, what are they laughing about? What's so damn funny? You can't be funny. You can't go drink no more. And I thought to myself, if I take a half a hit of acid, I can figure out what's going on here. There's something going on here. Because if I take a whole thing, somebody's going to know something's up with me. So I'll just take a half and I'll chill out. And it was the laughter. And I'll tell you what saved my life really was a handshake. There's a lot of things we can do in here that's really simple. Dr. Bob, I love Dr. Bob. I just love his message. He's in bed. He's dying. He's in bed. They asked him to write a letter. The last thing, he just said, keep it simple. Don't louse this thing up. Keep it simple. He knew to keep this thing simple. And, I sponsored a bunch of guys, and I've handed out a bunch of medallions. And you know what? Handing out medallions feeds my ego. Watching somebody get this thing feeds my spirit. And there's nothing more I enjoy than watching somebody get this thing. Watch the lights go on. Watch somebody get this thing. And I heard this too. Leroy Shields. I shouldn't say Atlanta. Leroy Shields. He was my counselor at the Mustard Seed, and he shared something in one of his talk was totally amazing. And I always like to say it because if you've ever been to a funeral or some wake or something like that, you heard something about that person that you never realized you knew. And he used to always share the most powerful thing in the world is what a person says about you when you're gone. And that's who I want to be. It doesn't matter how I've affected you when you've come up to me is what you think of me. And I've never forgot that. And that's a powerful thing. I don't know if I can mention this, but I'll fall apart. There was a girl, Valerie, it's in our fellowship, and she passed away. And she's like 5 or 6 years sober, and she went in for a headache, and migraine headaches, and a month and a half later she was gone, cancer. And I ended up being, I I ended up being the only one in the room. She was having a tough time. Her dad was in from town, and Alcoholics Anonymous members were coming in and out, and I was in there, and we were talking about taking turns watching her because she was in the last couple of days, and I started thinking to myself, people from Alcoholics Anonymous are going to come, and they're going to, they'll be there. I said, so I'm not working. I'm working for myself. So what I'll do is I'll take from 10 o'clock to midnight. I'll take that watch, and I'll watch her. And I got in there, and people from AA visited. They all left. Their dad was sleeping, and I took her hand. And I told her I love her, and I said, Val, I said, it's Johnny Webb, and I said, I'm not going nowhere. And 11:09, she passed away, and I never experienced nothing like that. The room got light. It wasn't light. It was just light air. It wasn't a light. And I told somebody about that. You know what they said? I carry resentments. I don't like to. I just do. And Val never had a resentment. I never knew her to have a resentment. And what happens, what I was told is, I didn't have no say. Val picked me to be there. She chose me to be there that night. And it was just, I didn't know that. It's powerful. And I got the message, though. You can believe me, I got the message why I was supposed to be there. Resentment's the number one offender. And if you're in here and you have one, you got to get rid of it. You don't have a say-so. You have not a choice. Resentment's the number one offender, and I believe what those 100 people wrote about it. I believe it with all my heart. And we're standing on shoulders of giants. I mean, Lou and Denny and all these guys that come before us, we're responsible. We're responsible to carry this message and keep it simple and keep Alcoholics Anonymous going. And, I'll share one more thing I didn't know. Somebody had to point this out to me. And I didn't know how God is, if you look around in your sobriety now, God is placing people around you to help you. And you're probably not even aware of it. You probably won't even know it for another couple of years, that someone close to you or someone around you has been placed in your life to help you, because God needs to do some work through you. And what happened is I went to a baseball game. I was 6 months sober, and I went to, they were called Devil Rays, and I went bobbling down to the stadium. I like baseball. I'm going to go to the stadium. And what happened is I didn't realize how much alcohol was going to be there. I didn't realize how much drinking would be on. I didn't know that. And there was a guy outside, and I looked at him. I said, hey, you want to you like baseball? I said, why don't we get a ticket? We'll sit together. Because I now I couldn't shut up then, so I was going to talk to somebody. It didn't matter who it was. I'm going to sit with somebody. I was talking. So I asked him, I said, well, we'll sit together. And he said, okay. We get a seat together, and as soon as we sit down in a seat, I'm thinking to myself, as we do, I'm like, he's probably going to be drinking. And I'm like, I look at this first inning, second inning, all that, and I was like, he's not drinking. I'm like, so I start looking at my leg and make sure his leg's not touching my leg. I'm thinking he's probably gay. And next thing I know that we talk. He's vacationing from Canada, and he's 7 years sober. And God had just placed somebody right next to me, and I was unaware of that. I was walking around and said, that's kind of neat, wasn't it? And Carol went. I said, Johnny, that's a serious miracle. That's a powerful miracle, how God had just placed somebody right next to you when you needed him. So I'd like to finish my talk. If you're new in here, all you really need to know is this works. And, some people don't know really how serious one person is or how serious you are about getting sober. When I was in the mental hospital in April, they had this thing where they had a big circle and everybody had a goal. They're like, what's your goal for today? And everybody, there's a big circle, and I was mentally and physically whipped. And some of these guys would say, I'd like to get my DD-214, or I'd like to go get my Social Security card. And I'm thinking, what the fuck, man? I go, I'd like to just make my effing bed. I go, is that a goal? And I said, would that be a goal all day long? I want to make my bed. How about that for a goal? Would that be a goal? And they laugh like you guys laugh. And you know what? I've made my bed every day since April 21st in 1997. And I thank you for my sobriety.